Pete Thamel of Sports Illustrated joining us once again here on the Rich Eisen Show, senior writer who covers college sports, especially college basketball. How you been, Pete?
I've been great, Rich, although I have to admit I've just been feeling the pressure after last year's performance.
You nailed it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to do it again. That is the only prediction I'll make today that I'm sure is going to come true. There is no chance I'm replicating the upset flurry I predicted on your show last
Pete,
year.
I refuse to believe that you selecting some of the biggest upsets that we saw last year, including, by the way, I think you said for Michigan State to watch its back for last year as they got one and done in a very surprising way. But I refuse to believe that's a Cinderella performance, Pete. I refuse to believe that, okay?
I think he was 3 out of 4.
I was the giddy pops of Middle Tennessee in picking last year.
You
and I
were.
don't know if I can re-giddy myself.
Okay.
And by the way, I did not pick Middle Tennessee to win last year. There's a 0 chance.
No, I'm trying to
the Final Four. Yeah.
I'm trying to do what a lot of people did yesterday, which is burnish their resumes. But that said, Pete, what do you think are upset possibilities now that you've got the brackets out there in front of you?
I have the bracket in front of me. I'm looking at the East right here to start, Rich, and I really like East Tennessee State, the 13 against Florida, the number 4 seed. East Tennessee is coached by a guy named Steve Forbes, who's kind of a crafty old JUCO coach he actually recruited Paul Millsap to Louisiana Tech. Steve Forbes has been around. He's sort of a country fox kind of guy. He's got a year show cause from the NCAA in his pocket too. So, Steve's seen some battles. He's got a kid named TJ Cromer on his roster, who's a JUCO guard who scored 19 a game, who I think the pace of that game and the style of that game, I think really fits what East Tennessee does. So go Buccaneers to start off. I am not picking UNC Wilmington, which is going to be a popular pick. I just feel like it's a terrible matchup for them against Virginia. And as hard as Virginia is to watch and how they stumbled down the stretch last year, they're still the 7th-ranked team in Ken Palm. So I think because of the style they play, people are more apt to pick against UVA, but I am not going to pick them. I'm going to pick the Cavaliers in that game.
Well, last year, one of the upsets you did give us was an Ivy League team. I do believe you chose Penn when it got through last year. Yale, pardon me. But you got Princeton against Notre Dame this year as a 5-12. Is that something you're circling right there?
I'm not buying that. See, I think Notre Dame is really like a 3 seed with a really they were as poorly ranked as any seed in the field, and they're playing really well if you watch them in the ACC tournament. I mean, they blew the doors off Florida State, which didn't deserve a 3 seed, and really played well against Duke in the finals. I actually have Notre Dame going to the Elite 8, and as much as I like Princeton and Mitch Henderson, and they obviously won 14 straight Ivy games and then won the Ivy tournaments, I just think that's a really bad matchup for Princeton. So in that bracket, I actually have Bucknell beating West Virginia. That is sort of the risque upset. I like Notre Dame a lot. I don't think this West Virginia team has been very consistent, and I'm still scarred from watching them gack up that late lead at Kansas about a month ago. So in the theory of I've seen Bucknell live this year up at Boston University up here. They're very good. They got a sort of a wing named Zach Thomas, who's one of the higher end players from the low major leagues, and I think they'll be disciplined enough and have the type of guards who can handle what Huggy Bear throws at them.
So you've gone two 13s, Pete Thamel. You've gone 2 13s so far.
I've gone 2 13s.
Okay, what else you got?
12 seed Middle Tennessee, which is everyone is going to take. I think they're only a 4-point underdog, so it's not this like crazy upset that everyone else has. But I really think if you look at Middle Tennessee, their body of work, they have a guard named Ja'Cory Williams who was not on the team last year. He transferred from Arkansas and sat out last year. He's averaging 17-3 a game. And then you have the aforementioned Giddy Potts also as their second leading scorer. They have 3 guys averaging over 14-5 a game. They are deep, loaded, and confident from winning in the tournament last year. So we are all Giddy Potts this week, Rich. I really like Middle in that game against Minnesota. The other double-digit seed that I like that a lot of people aren't going to pick, and you are not going to like this.
Okay.
But Albert Breer will, is that I'm going to take Oklahoma State over Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah, I just feel like you see these teams who are decent, who make these big tournament runs. The adrenaline wears off, especially with obviously the circumstances around the Michigan run, and then you dive into what Oklahoma State's done. Now they lost 3 of 4 to end the year, twice to Iowa State and once to Kansas, but I believe they'd won 10 of 11 before that. They're a team that really found themselves and plays a unique style I don't think this is the most athletic Michigan team in the world, Rich. You probably agree with that. And I think they're going to struggle with the with the style and with the pace of Oklahoma State. And it's a good upset to pick because everyone's like, oh, Michigan just won the Big Ten tournament. They're on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you remember that Jerry McNamara Syracuse team that made that remarkable run to the Big East title and then just completely fell on their face in a 12-5 game against Texas A&M. So there's some precedent there where the long run in the tournament can actually work against you.
Yes.
And I also just feel like there's an emotional element of Michigan sort of doing that they're going to have to sort of regather themselves out there in
Indianapolis. They're in Indianapolis. So they're at Lucas Oil. Pete Thamel of Sports Illustrated joined.
There too.
Oh, good, great. So you can watch in person how wrong you really are on that particular one, Pete. That's okay. But you may be obviously Oklahoma State is a stout opponent, and Michigan has, as you know, had such an emotional week. That's an interesting point to make right there. Pete Thamel of Sports Illustrated. Which team has the biggest case to say they got hosed to not make it? Do you think, Pete?
Nobody. They're all terrible. God, the whole bubble thing. Like, I really think they need to blow up how they do all that. Like, if you're sitting there crying over Syracuse, 14-loss Syracuse or whatever they were, not making the tournament, like, do something else. Like, the teams that have arguments are the Illinois States and the Monmouths, who had great seasons within the paradigm of their league, and the system is rigged to ignore them, and it's not going to stop. I really just feel like that the crying over Syracuse today is just a little nauseating. I mean, you had every opportunity in the world to have a decent season. The whole thing is rigged for you, and you went 2-11 and rode in neutral sites. Go win some games. You had a chance to do it. Illinois State, it's hard because they just didn't have a chance. I mean, I think they played 3 top 50 games. So I really have just, I don't know, I always hate the annual bemoaning because Kansas State's not a very good basketball team. Wake Forest is not a very good basketball team, and they got in. So it's just hard to really feel badly for the teams that left out of a 68-team field where there's probably really only like 55 teams that really earn their way in. The rest of them are just sort of like middling schlock that are designated there because the whole thing is biased towards the brand names, the big conferences, and the money.
Brockman, I think you've got a new fantasy team name, Middling Schlock.
Middling Schlock.
I like it. Middling Schlock is a great fantasy team name, by the way. Pete Thamel of Sports Illustrated joining me here on the show. Who do you have cutting down the nets then? Who do you have here, Pete, at the end of the day?
The Carolina Tar Heels cutting down the nets. Not the most original of picks, but I really think if you look at the body of work of the whole season, you have a team that is experienced and it has veterans and is old. And I really do think, like, if you look at the grand body of work, minus the one Kentucky team that had the number 1 and 2 pick in the draft, the teams that end up cutting down the nets are the teams with experienced veterans, like we saw with Villanova last year. And I just think that defensively, Carolina is stout. Offensively, they're one of the 5 best teams in the country. And night in and night out during the season, to me, they have the depth and the balance and the talent so that they're the safest pick to win the title. Let's put it that way.
So who do they play? Is there a possibility we have a rematch from last year?
There is a possibility we have a rematch from last year, and sign me up for that.
Okay.
They would. I have them playing Kansas, which I feel like, as your caller from Dodge City just pointed out, is going to have a distinct advantage because they're going to be playing in Kansas City. And I want to pick Louisville to beat them because I like this Louisville team, but I just feel like it's hard to pick against Kansas at home.
Right, but that would be North Carolina versus Kansas to get to the Final Four for the championship. Yeah. So Villanova, you think Villanova has a chance to make it?
I actually like Duke. I like Duke. It was hard to watch Duke
UNC
this week. And again, I'm going against my Michigan theory here, but there's no question that Duke has the most talent of any team in the country, Rich. I mean, there's just zero question about that. Body for body, Duke is the singular most talented team in the country. So, and I just feel like this Villanova team. Imagine Nova and Duke playing in Madison Square Garden in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four. I think that would be a fun night in the old barn.
Yes, it certainly would be. But what do you think about the possibility, though? I don't know if you're aware of this, Pete. If it made its way through college basketball circuits, but once Gonzaga won 28 in a row to start the season, I officially adopted them as the Rich Eisen Show team.
I mean, I got all the press releases about it, Rich.
Yeah, it's when you win 28 in a row to start your season, we're all over you. What do you think of Gonzaga? Does Gonzaga make it out of the West, or what do you think on that front?
I hate to say this about your adopted child, but I am still a little bit Gonzaga skeptical. And this obviously Gonzaga team is the best one, but I have them losing to Notre Dame, and I have Arizona coming out of the West. The West is going to be really interesting this year because you have a bunch of really good coaches who've never made the Final Four before, and I think one of them will, be it Mark Few, Mike Bray, Sean Miller. Hard to believe he's never made a Final Four. I really think this Arizona team, I think they would, if they did play Gonzaga in the Elite Eight, I think they would beat them because they did not have Alonzo Trier when they played earlier in the year. And I just feel like defensively and athletically, Arizona's a hair better than Gonzaga and will be a hair better than Notre Dame. But remember, Notre Dame's made back-to-back Elite Eights, and they have this sort of type of matchup issues and experience, and they have enough size. I think they could. I think they could beat Gonzaga. The West is going to be fun. I think a lot could happen out there.
All right. So just to recap, you like as upsets 13 seeds East Tennessee State over Florida. You also like Bucknell 13 seed over 4th seeded Virginia. For a 5-12,
Virginia. There's a slight difference between Virginia and West Virginia.
West Virginia. You liked as a 5-12. You like Middle Tennessee over Minnesota, and you think the Cinderella story out of Ann Arbor is one and done. Okay.
I do. I also like Rhode Island beating Creighton.
Okay.
In the first round.
File that one away.
Seed Rhode Island. I have Rhode Island going to the Sweet 16. Oregon shorthanded without Boucher is going to be tough. So,
okay. Thanks,
I have
Pete.
Wichita State winning, but I think they're favored, so I don't really think that's some like grand genius soothsayer on my part.
Well, way to go, Pete. I appreciate you calling in. We'll get back in touch with you throughout the tournament. Okay.
Yeah, have me on next week when I'm wrong about all of them. You can mock me because last year you praised me.
In the meantime, we will file all of these away, and we will definitely lock up Middling Schlock as a future fantasy team name. Very good, Pete.
Get that trademark, John Calipari style.
Terrific.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, Pete. That's Pete Thamel of Sports Illustrated saying he's nauseated by people like Chris Brockman complaining about Syracuse not making the tournament.
Pete's just saying that because he also went to Syracuse, so he wants to come off as objective.
There you go.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.